Hey everyone, I'm Renee Kennedy, joined here by Dr. Jasmine Kwasa.
Hello.
Great to have you here, Dr. Kwasa. We are here to talk about the trends, tools, and tea in Medtech from a design justice lens. If you guys aren't hip to what's going on in the design justice scene, there are a lot of really great biomedical innovators, as well as engineers and technologists who are doing everything they can to build technology that's accessible, inclusive, ethical, and empowering. And when I think about who really embodies design justice, I think of you.
Oh,
So,
well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And hello, Nesby, long-time member since 2009.
yeah, we love Nesby. So, I guess we could start by just, having you introduce yourself a little bit. I mean, I have this really impressive bio, so I could read it, or you could just talk more casually about yourself, but there's nothing casual about Dr. Kwaza.
Well, maybe you could say more of the official stuff, but I'll just introduce myself as Jasmine Kwasa. I have a PhD in electrical and computer engineering from Carnegie Mellon University, but I identify as a biomedical engineer, so I'm very much in the medtech, neurotech space. I'm from Chicago. I'm a sister, I'm an auntie, I'm a daughter. These are the things that I care most about, and engineering's a job, but I hope that my job can, help the world one day. So that's who I am as a human. And I guess I could also say I'm a postdoctoral fellow doing research at Carnegie Mellon still. So that's what you do after your PhD, but maybe before you become a faculty member. And I also am involved with several startups in the Pittsburgh area.
I love that. I think we'll start with there and, have things slowly work their way in. So I'll sit my phone down for now. But great to have you here. I guess I'll say a little bit about myself. My
Yes.
name is Renee Kennedy. I am a sociologist, a biomedical engineer, and the CEO of Equity Systems Design Consulting. So at Equity Systems, we are very passionate about teaching design justice, and we offer a number of design justice biodesign camps. We do a lot of work in the innovation space, working with startups, and there's various projects that we try to take on. So throughout my work, my studies, my research, I actually ended up coming across Dr. Kwaza through a colleague, Dr. Cecina Wood. Shout out to Dr. Cecina Wood.
My NSBE president back in 2013.
Yes, we
Hmm.
love CC. Um, but coming across you, I was able to actually study the work you did in my thesis and realize that you were, again, the pinnacle of what it comes to when you're talking about ethical design.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. So I feel like now's a good point to get into your research and the work you do. And you actually do work with a number of startups. So we'll start with one particular device, one particular product that I'm obsessed with. It's called the Sevo. Can you explain what the Sevo is and what it does? Give us the story.
Sure, and
Yeah.
I'll try to keep it brief. So Sevo is a medical device accessory, meaning that it helps enable other larger devices. If you know the FDA speak, it's based on a predicate device. So there's this kind of open secret in the field of neuroscience and neurology, where if you go in for an EEG reading, that's looking at the brain waves on the screen for epilepsy monitoring and even basic science research. Those caps that they put on the head, those electrodes, the wires that come from the head, tend not to work as well on people with hair like ours, coarse and curly, in braids, in like afros, loose. And so a few years ago, a colleague of mine who's become a great friend, another Black woman named Arnell Etienne, saw this. A lot of people in the field knew about it, but she decided to do something about it and created the first electrode adapter that helps the interface between the electrode wire itself and the scalp. And so the idea is it takes really, straightforward braiding techniques and knowledge of African textured hair, African descended hair, let's say, and uses the strength of the hair to kind of anchor down the electrode into place. It's a simple, straightforward solution. It's 3D printed, and it can just be printed out or manufactured en masse in the case of what my company is trying to do, and then anchors into the hair. And so it helps with the electrode impedance, which is a way of knowing the accuracy of the readings. And yeah, it's a really simple, elegant, but really impactful product that has been adopted in a few places, and it works for both clinical and research settings.
Wow. Okay, so you have had a number of successful accomplishments with the Sevo.
It's true.
Did you guys secure a safe node? Am I wrong about this one?
Yeah, so we've fundraised a ton. We have a phase 1 STTR, so that's an NIH grant that goes to companies and academic institutions. We've won a couple pitch competitions, and we have a safe from a local company foundation. So yeah, we've gotten quite a bit of traction, but we're still early on, I would say, doing some more product development and really getting the name out there. And I'll be honest, like we're pretty early still in the development pipeline, but I'm very proud what Arnell and I have been able to do, going almost internationally, truly internationally, and talking about this problem to the point where the larger EEG companies are even changing some of their designs because of Arnell and I speaking about this problem and providing a simple and elegant solution. People are actually threatened by it. So to me, if we don't even make a penny off of this, it still would be kind of worth it, because now there's an international conversation about bias in these neurotechnologies that have been used for hundreds of years. And just to be clear, the EEG was invented in 100 years ago, 1920 something in Germany. So that's the ramp up of, the Nazi party. That's the environment where it was designed. So of course it wasn't going to work for people with our hair type. So I'm very happy that we've been able to talk widely about that.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so you hit on a number of things, and I think we should peel it back and talk about the business case.
Sure.
So the reason why I bring up these business accomplishments is because the Sevo in its heart is an equity-centered product.
Yeah.
And we know our trend one, getting to trend one, DEI is going underground right now. And by that, what I mean is DEI hasn't gone anywhere, but the form of DEI, which is acceptable, is totally changed. With the executive orders that were, coming as early as January, we saw, you can't have this grant if you do equity work. You can't have that grant if you do equity work. We saw some companies going back.
Yep.
But at the same time, the reason why I believe a lot of these companies, and when I say I believe, I say through years and years of research, as well as paying attention to tons of articles that are happening from FDA consultants and everything else. But the reason why a lot of projects continue to be successful is because equity means you're reaching broader markets, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I love what you do, because you are not just focused on the fact that this device helps you reach a broader population, but it's a device that ultimately gives you a competitive advantage in the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I'll just reframe exactly what you said. You've basically said my response. Equity isn't it's not only the morally correct thing to do, it makes money. So when you're racist, you're actually losing out on money, right? It's a common sense approach. If you make a device and it only works for the global minority, is the way I would probably frame it, then you're missing out on a whole market share. People would push back. Oh, well, the most populous, continent with people of African hair would be Africa. And those are the places where maybe they won't be buying as much of the product, or maybe people can't afford it. But that's, to me, still small-minded. It makes most sense to create something that works for everyone. So what I've done personally, we just finished this NIH grant. There's a phase 1 where you're developing the product, and then the phase 2 is when you're really working on commercializing it. So we put in a grant for phase 2. We got a decent score. We'll see if it comes out.
Fingers crossed.
But with it, we had to get rid of all of the DEI language. I had to strike my CV with NSBE. I put NSBE instead of Black engineers. I put asterisks every time I mentioned, any of the words on the banned list. And I mean, we still got decent scores. Everything made sense. But the idea behind equity and inclusion is common sense. It's not I'm kind of preaching to the choir. It's not something to be afraid of. It's actually common sense. If you're making something, it should work for everyone. And if it doesn't, then that's called a niche product. And now you can make a ton of money on that niche product. So people are being very close-minded when that's not the case.
Absolutely. But we know the most innovative companies, again, that are getting to the weak points and the pain points of these larger companies. So, what you guys are doing, I mean, you're telling me you're making impact on these larger companies, just,
Yes.
being a very early stage startup. Another thing you had mentioned, you keep talking about Africa. So Jasmine is Kenyan, for those of you who don't know. Yes, they have a bracelet.
Peep the bracelet. Everyone from Kenya has the bracelet. It's kind of funny.
And actually, you're wearing a ton of drip right now. So
Period.
we here believe in trying to be as accessible to as many groups as possible. So actually, we're going to take some time and describe what we're wearing. So Jasmine, if you could describe yourself head to toe for a listener who may not be able to see you, that'd be great. Okay.
So what I have on, I got that stuff on.
She got it on.
Is I have my, bracelets. So this is just a brass bracelet. Brass is very popular in Kenya. You'll start to notice at the airport or anywhere you go, Kenyans, we always wear this this little identifier. Then, you just talk to someone about a yako or whatever. I'm also wearing this, it's actually a Fitbit, right? But it looks really sleek, and it's jewelry essentially. So I spent a little extra money on my Fitbit to get this because it blends in. You can't go to something fancy wearing those like bulky bands, right? So I love my Fitbit. I wear it pretty much 24/7 other than in the shower, because it looks at my sleep, and it's actually quite a great biomedical innovation that no one's really thinking about as such. But yeah, so I have this, and then I have, of course, my beaded work. And this is also from Kenya. So I'm half Kenyan. And I spent a year in Kenya doing some of this inclusive neurotech research work as a Fulbright scholar last year in Kenya. So that was really fun. Got to meet my family and live with them. And it was really cool.
Absolutely. And before I describe myself, there's so much I want to get on with that. So your experiences in Kenya, right? That is a Black country.
Period.
And you are working on EEG and neurotech there. Are you still thinking about accessibility, inclusivity? How was that different there compared to the work you're doing in the US?
Yeah, the long and short of it is when you're working in countries, so the biggest, I think, difference in working in the US versus these other countries is that the markets work very differently. So that's how much money can be spent on a solution. And then you add on top of it that everyone there is Black. So to me, it was a treasure trove of really thinking critically about how the intersection of this kind of inclusive and moral good thing works with economics, right? So how can you create something that the government of that country or private people, individuals in that country will adopt because the price point is right, but it also actually is correct for the work that you need to do. And it's a challenge. Like, I don't really have all the answers, but I do know that first of all, when you're doing biomedical research of any sort, you need to go to the people who are the end users and really know, will that person be using what you have? So one of the shocking things was my aunt's a neurologist there, come from randomly very smart people. Didn't know this before, by the way. Just showed up and was like, oh, wow, people in my family do what I do. And
Wow.
I went to her clinic, was talking to her about hair. And I'm like, okay, do you all have a struggle with EEG? She was like, nope, we don't. Everything's fine. And that was shocking to me. And then as I talked to her more and talked to her colleagues, they kind of thought, you know what, maybe you're right. We just took for granted that some of these EEGs don't work as well on our people. Let's think about it. And so by the end of my time there, we were being a little more open they're being more open to the idea because they don't have a concept of race. And then I was being more open to the idea of, in a place where there's only Black people, they actually have different concerns that they're thinking about. They're thinking, oh, this is just how it is. And maybe the problem is accessibility of how expensive it is rather than how well it works in a certain context. So it's very complicated, and I can't even get into all the details, but it was a very eye-opening experience. And I'll just kind of wrap this up by saying, even in the US, when you're thinking about designing for accessibility or inclusivity, you really have to think of who is the purchaser, especially in medical technology. The end user, yes, it's the patient. But for example, the EEG technician is doing the braiding and the putting the piece in the hair. That's also an end user. Will they adopt it? And then who are they reporting to? A neurologist. They're reporting to the administrative people who are buying the product. And oh, by the way, yes, the hospital is buying the product, but insurance has to reimburse it. So will insurance reimburse your product, or will they say it's not necessary? And now you're putting the burden of paying for it on the patient, and that's not good either. So it's actually a complex web. So you have to think about profitability, usability, end user, purchaser, and these are all different parties.
All of that stuff.
Yeah, it's rough.
It is rough, but hey, it's a challenge that if anyone can take this on, I have full faith in you and your team, right?
Thank you.
So you actually did get to another trend that I think is very important to talk about, is that we don't just have a bunch of changes happening nationally, but globally. There is a whole, series of conflict going on, whether we're talking about, violence in the most physical sense with wars and genocide and things. And of course, we want to hold space for that because that's very important. But also what's happening on a more subtle level when it comes to these tariffs, and how does that affect biomedical innovation. And actually, I'm not sure if folks are aware, but the FDA has actually increased scrutiny of off-site auditing. So if you have a manufacturing site and you're a US-based medical device company, but you're manufacturing out of Germany, they're going to look a lot closer at what's happening in Germany than they are in the US, because they really are trying to bring everything back in the States. But we know that we are a very globalized society.
100%.
So if we don't consider what's happening globally and, in our diaspora, we're going to have a lot of issues. And even what's happening in Kenya is affected by what's happening here.
100%.
They're accepting our US-based designs. So the interface of those two things and global issues and politics all together are really impacting medtech.
If I may, I'll add in a bit of maybe advice for people who want to get into the medtech or especially neurotech space. And I think we talked about this before we started, so I think it's safe to say, is that if you are starting your own startup, or if you are thinking about innovation for accessibility, is the word that I think we use now to kind of avoid the banned list. It's important to have perhaps multiple products, right? Ones that work in the equity field and the innovation and inclusion field, but maybe one that's a little more traditional, right? I know that you're an expert about stealth and how to get some of the things that we really care about to the forefront. I would love to hear more about that from you. But it would be actually very strategic to do what my company does, which is there's a software product that has an AI backbone in it, is going to go and make millions maybe one day. I'm not in charge of that. That's not mine. But there's some IP there for this very traditional neurotech detection of, some brain disease. But then on the other side, we have this hardware device that is for people with coarse and curly hair. And by the way, we've designed it so that it works for straight hair as well, right? So you can stealthily make money at the beginning on this hardware product that might have a smaller market cap, which just basically means the maximum amount of money you can make on it, while developing this other one, and it kind of finances the other product. And then maybe when that one takes off, it can refinance the hardware product or your equity product. So you have to be creative about this, especially in the funding landscape that we have right now. It doesn't mean give up on your equitable product. It just means be stealthy about it. So if you want to talk about that, that's great. But
yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that segue. So there are 3 types of laboratories, biomedical innovation cultures, workspaces that I often talk about. And the first is the more traditional one, the one that says, oh, we don't think about bias, like how you were talking about your lab in Kenya. Then there's the second. We call those DEI-friendly labs or DEI-friendly cultures. And in those DEI-friendly spaces, we know that it's important for people to be themselves. So we have different events to make people comfortable, but they're largely just one-off and, full of unpaid volunteer committee work. So DEI in that sense has really gone away because we know it's no longer acceptable anymore. But what I talk about a lot in the case of stealth mode is that third category of substantive work, that ultimately we are not just talking about you being included in the organization. It's we want to change the innovation. We want to change the outcome of healthcare for different populations, which is so much more substantive than just saying, oh, we are going to make you comfortable.
You belong here in a very wish-washy way. Yeah.
And yes, Yes, exactly. And we see there's a ton of backlash on that. Kalev and Dobbin are two sociology or organizational sociology researchers that talk a lot about the backlash of diversity. So, the backlash of diversity is a huge trend, as well as, it's competing with what's happening globally and people's need to say, you know what, we don't know if things are going so well here. How about we look at what's going on in other places? So I think that's a good transition point for us to actually start talking about wearables and other sort of technologies that also, again, kind of hit at this accessibility thing. So you talked about this awesome little, nifty little Fitbit you have. I love that.
It's cute, right?
It's cute.
It's giving.
It's gorgeous. I would absolutely love to see more devices that are out there that are swanky and built into, my regular outfit. I don't want to put on a big, bulky smartwatch. But I also think the second reason why the Fitbit is so revolutionary is not just because of course, how it looks and how it works with your lifestyle, but is the fact that you get access to your own healthcare data.
Yeah, 100%. Do you want me to talk more about that?
If you want to, yeah sure.
So, I mean, this is a huge trend. You've identified something that in the medtech space especially is huge. It's it's on the medical side, right? It's called point of care, or I think there's another one, point of something, I forget, but just really having the medical device come to you. So instead of going, you go to the ER and now you have to go to the CT scan, it's bringing the ultrasound or something to you, right? And the exact same thing is happening in big tech, where all the big tech companies, all the FANG ones, Facebook, Amazon, whatever, anyway, FANG, Netflix, all of them have wearables, right? And I just applied to a job at Nike, and they're doing the same type of cognitive science research for wearables, right? So this is a huge thing where your data, though it might not be readily accessible to you just by maybe looking at the face of your device, you could go online and find the information that it's been collecting from you, and that gives you more power over it. So not to be like Elizabeth Holmes, the famous medtech professional who kind of scammed a bunch of people with the quip of everyone should know their own data, but it's truly becoming a society where we're learning our own data and knowing it. And that helps me. I mean, I get my sleep based on my Fitbit. It's kind of wrong sometimes, but it's really huge. And all the big tech companies are seeing it. I think it's important to follow that trend, but also be wary because, for example, Fitbit, it uses green light to assess kind of your oxygenation and all these things. And green light famously does not penetrate melanin as well as red light. So when you see one of these that have red light in them, I think this one is an updated one that has both green and red. So it looks white because green and red together make almost white in the visible spectrum. And so now that it's updated, it does a better job. But some of these Fitbits or the other types of, off-brand things, they might not actually work as well on people with dark skin, right? So this is another example of how if you don't have the right people, you're in a DEI space or a place where, people aren't really thinking about the variation in human biology and phenotype, then they're going to miss a whole segment. And now they're going to be saying that you have better oxygenation than you really do. And now you're at a lower risk for the X, Y, and Z, but you're actually at a higher risk, right? So it's going to miss some very practical things. And now that data isn't useful for you as the consumer. So it's really a big thing to be able to adopt these technologies, but the technologies work for us.
Absolutely. And I actually want to give a shout out to the CEO of Inspectra, Dr. Gabriel Sanchez, who helped with one of our design courses, because they are working on a device for detection that, works with skin. And I asked him this question about, how do you get around this green light bias? What do you do? And he gave me the simplest response. I think it was like 5 words. He was like, well, you just fire off at 780 nanometers. Yeah. And I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
These are fixable problems.
Yeah. Just use red light, use a different wavelength. That's it. Yeah.
Quite simply.
It's actually quite that simple.
Right. So when it comes to this radically inclusive and impactful tech, it does not have to be complicated, which I think is very much so your strength, right?
100%.
As a CTO, Miss CTO of the year 2024.
That's true. That's a thing.
That is a thing.
That was a thing.
Jasmine's won way too many awards for me to read off.
Yikes. I appreciate you. Yeah, so a lot of these solutions are very simple. As I said, Arnell Etienne, she was, I will believe, 21 years old, 22, in a class as an undergraduate. And honestly was, maybe she's okay with me disclosing this. I think she was unsure of her space in biomedical engineering, electrical engineering. Like, oh, I don't look like anyone. My personality, she's very spiritual. She's very in tune with like her body and who she is, her ancestors. And she brought up this idea and said, no, I'm going to pursue it. Like, let me create this product. And it ended up being this beautiful, simple solution, just like with Fitbits or I think it's probably something nography, whatever kind of.
Oh, PPG, yeah.
I used to know the full term, but yeah. With those, and even some brain sensing modalities that use optical light, shining onto the scalp, a lot of times you just turn up the intensity and it will penetrate melanin better. Or you use a different wavelength of light, so going from green to red or infrared even. And it's a simple solution. You just have to have someone in the room while it's being designed, or even later on when you're testing it on people, to think, let's decorrelate the score based on not necessarily race, because maybe President Trump might not like that, but based on melanin content, which is a physical parameter rather than a sociological one. I think that's actually a huge part of the design process.
Absolutely. Also, the Fitzpatrick scale is a bit biased, so there's
very
other ways to think about
the hair bias, the hair scales.
Oh yeah.
They're all just made up.
Plus, I'm like past type 4D. Like, this is, you can't see what I got going on, but this is like coils and coils and coils.
Not 4D. I'm screaming. No.
Speaking of, actually, I have to describe what I'm wearing. So
yes,
I am a medium tone black woman, very brown skin, with curly red auburn hair and a ponytail. I attempted to do my edges for the day. I have cow print large glasses.
She's cute.
Look, I'm a vibe. I have this blazer on I thrifted from San Francisco that is white with flowers and some green leaves on it. I'm wearing a white skirt as well as these very colorful Nikes that I actually got from a streetwear store in Luxembourg on a fun trip. So
super cute.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very into fashion. I can tell you're into styling and profiling as well.
A little bit.
Yeah, which is why I love talking about wearables, accessibility. Speaking of wearables, I actually worked not too far from where we're filming right now in the visualization and image analysis lab under Dr. George Stetton. Shout out to Dr. George Stetton, one of the greatest innovators of all time, someone who I really respect because he brought in the idea of inclusivity in the lab without making it a formal DEI event, without making it a formal thing. He just wanted to make everybody feel included. And he knew that deep down, if people had different backgrounds and different interests, they would create a larger range in accessible technology.
100%.
So I absolutely love the work I got to do with him on the Fingersight project, and actually want to bring things back to wearables since we're talking about them. So one aspect of wearables I love are continuous glucose meters, aka CGMs. Are you familiar with those?
Yeah, 100%. So like there are people in my family who've had it, but I would actually love for you to tell, because I've heard your story and I would love to hear more about it. These things it's in a group of these medical devices that are serving our people more proportionally, in the US at least, than people who don't look like us. And they have to work for us, right? And we have to know how to make them work for us and our meemaws and nanas and grandmas and gmas and them, right? So I would love to hear your story about it, actually.
Yes, so I am so passionate about CGMs. I'm very tight with my grandfather. My grandfather is 81 years old, and he is a type 2 diabetic. He's been a diabetic since age 50. And I lived with my grandparents since age 12, actually. And I would watch him take insulin week in, week out, over and over again, watching him prick himself to get his measurements and things like that. And he always said, Renee don't get diabetes. And I was like, okay, like, of course, you know, and
Right.
I do have to watch because I do love me some sugar. But
Period.
watching him, swear, I got a terrible sweet tooth. I got
Same.
some cheesecake actually waiting on me.
real bad.
It's in the car. Definitely. Ugh.
Anywho.
Well, RIP my cheesecake. Anyways.
I still eat it.
Yeah, look. You still eat it. Give it a little bit. You know,
Forgive
just feel
me.
a little toasty.
Forgive me.
You got a strong stomach.
Yep.
That Kenyan.
So do.
I'm like that as well. So my grandfather with these CGMs, I love the fact that now that he does not have to prick himself a bunch of times a day just to get a reading. What he has is this little white device, if you've ever seen those little white circles on people's arms, that continuously will take your reading throughout the day, which I guess is technically not continuous, but it's more continuous than you having to prick yourself whenever you want to prick yourself. So I believe those devices are awesome, and they are in a way almost revolutionizing how we do diabetes care.
Yeah.
Which, as you know, it's our Black communities and our Latino communities and actually our Indian communities and our Native American and our indigenous communities all suffering from this disproportionately. So I feel almost excited to see the ways that people are able to get better access to care, but I also want them to go so much further. I mean, I have a friend who he's a soccer player and his CGM got knocked off while we were playing, and he screamed when it got knocked off, and I was like, "Are you okay? Like, I'm sure that's painful. You just got a needle ripped out of your arm."
Right.
And he said, "Well, honestly, I'm more hurt because these are really expensive and my insurance does not cover this." And he's a firefighter.
That part.
He's a public servant.
And that's it.
And my grandfather's, I mean, his reader goes off all the time at night. I mean, the alarm system is absolutely terrible. Do you really need to know that your glucose is high at 2 a.m? What is that? What are you gonna do? Wake up and take some insulin? So I think some better.
Well, actually, yes,
design.
but yeah.
do you? Well, actually, what do you mean by that?
Well, okay, so maybe I'm not an expert at this, but I know that some people, especially as you age, I've dealt with, you know, sick parents and all sorts of things. I have a funny story from college. I was driving with my grandfather to pick up my brother from college, and he was like passing out in the seat, and we were talking about German language, this and that, because whatever. And he's passing out. I'm like, what's going on with him? And it's because he didn't check his blood sugar, and he was having a diabetic coma situation type of thing. So stopped by the side of the road and was like, eat this bagel, you know, and it was fine. But it's important to know, because sometimes people, you know, there's neurodivergences no matter what age you are.
Right.
Some people don't get hunger cues, don't understand. So it would be important to know your status even at night, because you might crash and there's sudden, I believe it's called when your glucose goes too low, especially for people with type 1 diabetes, you can have an acute situation and pass in the night because of that.
Wow.
So it is kind of important to have a continuous monitoring, but make it not painful. Make it in a way that, you know, it's usable for the end person. Because there's so many things with, I'll speak to my grandma's case. She hates all medical interventions because they're never explained well enough to her. There are always some side effects that are making her life even worse. And yeah, I just think that these are design considerations, like human-centered design considerations, that a lot of people are not looking to in these big tech companies, which could help adoption, could help them make more money, and could help our grandparents, our Black, you know, ancestors, or people who are about to be more, you know, open to adopting these technologies. So not to squash your entire thought process, but yeah, it's like a thing.
Right. It's a tough balance, right? Because
Yeah.
I think that he does need to know when it's so low that he's, you know, entering the sugar coma, or he's going to pass out, because I've seen him get weak. But at what points is it something that is a bit excessive, or is the alarm overdoing it? Because it's certainly a delicate balance. But the amount of times it goes off during the day, I mean, it goes off if you walk too far from your meter.
Oh.
Yes. And it's like, he left today and I was still at home, and I just heard beep, 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 beep for like 30 minutes.
Oh.
So I agree with you, and I see the importance in this, but I think we need at least some customization of the sensors that can balance that, you know, can it work for you, and does it do what it needs to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is free game for anyone who's doing some type of Medtech development, or maybe work at a larger company and could prop an idea. At some point in your life, you will be disabled, right? We have baby boomers and the greatest generation, all of our elders outliving and outlasting. I have 8 aunts and uncles over the age of 80. Right. And they're all kicking. They're all driving. Like, I was at my family reunion in Mississippi the other week, and this is my American side. And these folks are still going. And so you will need many more products to help people who didn't grow up with technology or don't know or will forget their meter and have it beeping all the time to our annoyance. There are all of these things that are going to happen, and more people are living longer, but not necessarily living healthily longer, right? Ooh. So there's a whole segment of the market that is not tapped in right now, where we could be creating these very ergonomic and like elder-friendly technologies that would be, just like our product, an accessory to already existing devices, right? I think that's huge. So free game, wearables, point of care, but also these gap-filling, perhaps non-medical devices that are just helping out something that was on the cutting edge years ago.
Right. And you actually get at another trend. I'll call it trend 4. I definitely lost count. But the aging population in the U.S. is huge.
It's a big thing.
It's huge. So what do we do if we have a shortage of people who, are refusing to work and provide senior care even?
Yeah.
Because they don't want to get paid $12 an hour to clean up someone's bodily fluids and everything else, right? Can you be mad at them for that? So we have a lot to address. And of course, AI being another huge trend. And people are loving, using machine learning and software. And you were even talking about the software you actually developed, your team has developed for Sevo. That was an ML software and that was, what year did you guys come up with this?
Yeah, I mean, the academic papers that led to all of these products were in like the 2018 to 2020 realm. I mean, to be fair, in the academic side, AI has been going for a while, large language models and all of that.
Right.
But large language models are definitely a newer thing, but artificial intelligence or machine learning especially has been on the cutting edge for a long time. Like, we've been at Carnegie Mellon, it's one of the top schools for it. These algorithms for, better predictions of just certain diseases or whatever have been in the pipeline for a long time. So my co-tech lead at my company was developing that ages ago. And the lab that I still work in is still developing stuff. And I can't talk about one of the projects that I'm on, but doing some more of that in, I actually can't even say what space it's in because the NDAs are strong.
Wow.
So, yeah. But yeah, it's a huge thing. The AI boom is here, and it doesn't have to be scary. My only thing, and this is from Jasmine's perspective, not as a medtech founder, but as a human who deeply loves her grandparents. I don't think that we should be making AI replace these care professionals or families. They should be enhancing things to make things easier to interact with those people, right? So if we could make a Zoom where it's like I can check in on my grandma daily and she doesn't have to like log into Zoom and open it up and all of that, but she could just click a button and I'm there, that could actually be better for her mental health. Not having to fuss with all of the technology, but still get the human on the other end of the technology. That's the type of stuff that we need to develop more of.
Technology for human connection.
Yep.
Somebody make a Jasmine button, okay? I just gave you a really cute name for it, too. It's a whole flower.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, right?
A little lotus situation.
Ooh.
I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway.
So, you talked a little bit about neurodiversity, which I am learning a lot more about thanks to these disability care clinics from the People's Hub. If you are somebody who considers to be neurodiverse or you're interested in supporting neurodiverse populations, please check out their resources. They are absolutely wonderful, and they provide all sorts of really cool resources. But getting to that specifically in medtech, right? How neurodiversity shows up. I mean, also how gender diversity shows up. All of these things that are important, in addition, that intersect with race. What do you see going on in this space? Are there technologies that are thinking about these things? Are there technologies combining these different aspects and thinking about intersectionality?
Yeah. I I think yes, the answer is yes, especially with these large language models, especially with the GPTs, the AI agents. If you have an afternoon in the audience, go and teach yourself about AI agents, teach yourself about AI, like making your own GPT, not just using ChatGPT, but creating your own. These are really powerful tools for people with neurodiversities, especially the kind of more cognitive ones, well, I'll just speak to myself. Your girl has ADHD and or ADD, whichever one you want to call it, and it helps with organization. It helps with keeping time. It helps with knowing the steps to a process, right? So that is definitely a huge thing, I think. Just the straight up large language models. But I think the problem with medtech, a lot of tech, not just medical technologies, and especially neurotechnologies, is there are so many devices and processes that are out here now that don't take into account, just like dark skin or curly hair, they don't take into account that people's brains work very differently. And I don't mean this in the, oh, everyone who's a Gen Z is now ADHD and it's just learn some discipline. I mean, there's some real things that are not accounted for in our current technological design practice and space. And so if we were to start thinking a little bit more holistically about what people might need for physical or mental disability, then again, we can reach a larger market. If you think only dollars and cents in economics, it is a compelling reason, right? And then on top of it, you add that there is a moral duty for us to take care of people who are at the margins. Why? Again, if you want to be altruistic and know that we are one human race and we should all come together, great. But let's talk dollars and cents. There's a market, and then there's also one day you will be disabled. If you're a female-bodied person and you choose to get pregnant, that is a disability. You could play soccer. I know that you play soccer. You could, I know that you have concussion history. I know that you've had other injuries. Those things can happen any day. God forbid, you could get hit by a bus and now you're a disabled person. So if you want to be selfish about it, if you want to just be hardcore economical about it, there are reasons to care a lot about accessibility, because you never know when a stroke might hit you, you might be in a coma, whatever, and your brain will not work the same way that it did before. Long COVID, it's out here and it's messing us up, right? It slows you down and you might have it for years. So it's really important. Selfishly, you should care. But then you should also care because humans.
Right. And
Did I answer the question?
Yes, you did. You're getting at all of this. You're giving us some good advice for fellow innovators who really want to go after what's missing. What's missing is that human-centeredness. What's missing is, of course, the lack of attention to people, but also the lack of understanding that sick people are how you make money. And if sick people look like you and look like me, you have to cater to those people. And it's terrible only if you don't actually care about those people. But it's substantive if you actually care about who they are.
Yeah.
They aren't just your end user. They are a true stakeholder that you need to design for and design with.
Yeah.
And I think being in community with those people is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
And we're not thinking about co-designers and community-centered design and what it would look like if we had, community-based participatory research, which I absolutely love guiding folks through, especially when it comes to working with youth organizations.
Yeah, she's an expert in this for sure.
That's my love.
Can I also add? Sorry, maybe we can cut this if it's too long. But I think it's important to say, especially. So I mentioned Arnell earlier, the inventor of Sevo, and she said that she was feeling, not really in the Carnegie Mellon electrical engineering group because she's so different, visibly, but the way she is spiritual and all of that. It's actually so important that Black people are in the design room, that engineers are a part of this process that are Black, right? Because we are inherently, and this is not a generalization, it is a generalization maybe, but we are inherently more connected like you and me, with our grandparents. We're more connected with our culture than the status quo student at these elite universities. And so there's actually something quite powerful that we have that we don't have to train for. We don't have to, we should be going into communities to do focus grouping before we design a new medical technology device or any type of device. But that's kind of built into who we are, because if my mom, she had a surgery and she, because of it, wasn't mobile, so she gained a lot of weight. When they wanted to put a knee brace on her, the knee brace didn't fit. So automatically, just by being in community with my mother and knowing how she is and talking to her friends who are like, oh, that happened to me, that happened to me, that happened to me, I automatically know that there's a design issue there, and now I can address it, right? But a lot of people who are not, I would say it's a cultural superpower that we have as Black people, because we are so involved in our communities, right? The very thing that keeps us from progressing in academic spaces, which is I have to drop out to take care of my mom, or I have to fly home during the big exam to see, this person, or send money home so I don't have money. Those very reasons that sometimes keep us back are the things that would make us so powerful in these spaces. So that's the beauty of being a Black engineer. And I think actually people are catching on to that.
Absolutely. And I love this. And it's, again, you're not just talking about having Black skin, right? You're talking about
the Black cultural experience.
The Black cultural experience. Being in community is key. There's an intentional aspect about these people matter to me. So I'm going to think about them when I'm in the lab and when I'm out of the lab. And there's a difference that I really want to stress on, because I believe that there are a lot of people, a lot of programs that are churning out engineers, and they're telling us, don't think about your culture. Don't think about who you are. Engineering is neutral. Engineering is something that you don't consider all of these outside factors.
Those are fighting words to me.
Those aren't numbers. Those aren't statistics. Yes, they are. There are statistics about what wavelength you are supposed to fire off for our skin. There are statistics about how you are supposed to deal with people that have different, neurodiversity and different patterns and thinking. There are numbers and there's data behind it. And if you are not intentional with using that stuff, you are going to be no different. So please bring yourself into the lab. Bring your full self into the lab.
100%.
Me and Jasmine, I argue, are two very Afrocentric Black women, and we love bringing ourselves into our work. And I believe that a lot of what you've been able to do is because you bring yourself into 100%. The work. It's not in spite of it. It's not with it. It's not a simple aesthetic. It's what you wear. Your Kenyan identity is really embedded in the products you design.
100%.
And I can appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So it's been good. It's been great. I think we're getting to the point where we can start wrapping up. If there's nothing else that you would want to address, I
guess the main takeaway that I have is kind of that last point for folks in the audience, especially if they're students. But even if you're at a big tech company and you're just interested in the topic, it is really important, even if you're not going into the space fully with your fro out and wearing your dashiki or whatever. It's important that the small voices in the back of your head that say, wait, hold on, am I tripping? Did they just say that? Some statistic that doesn't ring true to your identity or your community. It is important to, at very minimum, write it down, interrogate it, bring it to your NSBE colleagues, bring it to us. We are the two people, I think, most, at least visibly, who talk about this and say, okay, your whole identity and who you are and what you call out in these spaces is important, and there are people working on it, and we can connect you to those people. So definitely, just take note of those and speak about it in safe spaces until you're ready to speak about it, perhaps at a larger venue.
Absolutely. So before we go, I have one last question for you, Dr. Kwasa.
Yes, ma'am.
What is next for you? What do you want the people to know? What you got going on? You're at an interesting point right now in your career.
I am. I'm going to be radically honest, because that's who I am. So Trump did cut my funds. They might be coming back, but we'll see. So I'm involved in 2 startups, 1 non-disclosed kind of research project, and I work in the academic space. And so my next phase is actually me creating something of my own. And hopefully working with you along with it,
Absolutely.
being able to do a blend of 2 or 3 key things. One is teaching, right? So really being talking in these spaces, talking to people who are training for that next level of like AI innovation or medtech innovation, and getting them to think about equity and diversity. That's one kind of teaching and training thing. Two is continuing to do EEG analysis and brain stimulation type of work. So not only am I reading from the brain, we're writing into the brain, we're stimulating it non-invasively. And so I'm excited to do more of that like technical development work. And then of course, just being in the community and speaking about these things and getting to know the real pain points in my community and addressing them. So I can't tell you exactly what I'm cooking up, but yeah, hire me.
That's CTO of the year right there. I believe this is a good point for us to close out. I hope we have some nice swanky music that we can get our audio engineer to add on at the end of this.
Should we pretend to dance?
Should we
even though it'll
pretend
be
to
offbeat?
no? So actually, Jasmine is my business partner, if you guys haven't picked that up already. And we have done a number of awesome, I'd say, projects together, looking at, what can we design for people to use, what sort of interfaces, systems, and things. And we have a few things in the works. But not only is she's my business partner, she's my dance partner.
True.
We love Afro beats.
Yeah.
And Jasmine with the footwork, she's a footwork girly.
Well.
So again, bring your full self into these spaces because we need you, right? So thank you guys for listening. We look forward to seeing you at NSBE Professional Development Conference in NOLA this 2025. And please tap in with us. We have plenty of resources. Equity Systems Design Consulting is here to support you in all your needs. And with that being said, like, comment, subscribe, do whatever it do. And we look forward to seeing you guys in person.
Great. Thank you so much, Renee.
Oh, thank you.
This is wonderful.